What is going on YouTube? Examples here coming out with a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing our first couple of games within our arena run. If you guys didn't see yesterday's video, we basically made the deck that I will be playing with. The full deck list you can see on the left hand side of the screen before we get into this particular game. And I did pick the Shaman over the Priest and the Warrior, I believe, were the two other options. So that is what we've gone with, and to be perfectly honest, this is probably one of the better drafts I've managed to put together with the help of Hearth Arena, which I've kind of got in the background so I can keep up to date with what's going on, and also I can obviously put in the matches that I play and also the rewards I get right at the end. But nevertheless guys, what we're going to do is we're going to find our first opponent, and I'll see you there. Okay guys, so we have now found our first opponent, and we do have a Warlock. Now I'm probably going to get rid of the Venture Coat and the Youthful Brewmaster and put Whirling Zap-O-Matic, keep that in my hand, just because I think that's probably the best card to start off with. Plus that Bone Guard Lieutenant is a fairly good card as well, especially with the Inspire that it's got. But we're going to end our turn there because obviously we can't do anything on turn 1 anyway. Then turn 2, I'm not too sure what I'm going to put out. I have a bit of a choice, I guess you could say. I have got obviously Bone Guard, I've got the Whirling Zap-O-Matic, and I've got the Huge Toad. Plus the thing that he's got on board doesn't really trade into any of them, so I'm actually going to put the Huge Toad out to start with, I think. And then we can still play something on the next turn, and also the turn after that. So next turn I'm probably going to go Bone Guard Lieutenant, and then into a Piloted Shredder. That is the optimal play, but obviously we don't really know what's going to happen with regards to how this game is going to pan out. Now right now I'm probably not going to trade anything off the board, just because actually I might trade, do I trade the 1-2 off of the board?
I can fix anything.
Or do I not and just go face is the question. So Crackle isn't that bad, but I'm going to keep it in my hand right now just so we have it ready for obviously anything bigger that he does play. So let's put Bone Guard Lieutenant out, and I am actually going to trade into the 1-2 and then hope that he trades his 1-2 into my 3-1, and then obviously trades a 2-2 into my Inspire. That's the optimal play right here, because then we do stay within reasonable distance, but he doesn't end up doing that, which is a bit odd to me. So now this turn 4 play has actually probably changed. Let's go with the Totem first. Wow, that's incredible. The spell damage is quite good for us, but we don't really want it just yet. And then let's put the Wind Fury out as well. So I'm actually going to attack to face this time around. I'm not going to attack into any of the minions. We've both got the same amount of minions on board, so I didn't really see the trade to be as valuable as it possibly could have been. His 1-1 might trade into the 3-2, but then either of the other cards he's got on the table also gets traded out if he does that. So he might, it looks like he wants to trade a 2-3 into the 3-2, get another Imp on board, trades the 2-1 into the 3-1, also the 1-1. That's a fairly decent play for him. That was a very good play for him actually. So, ooh, this turn's a little bit tougher for me, because I could either go, I don't have any mechs on board yet, so I don't really want to use Power Mace. Obviously Piloted Shredder would be nice to have on the board to match his Piloted Shredder. And then obviously we could go Power Mace and into Crackle next turn, or we could just drop a Fire Elemental depending on what he chooses to do. So let's drop the Piloted Shredder down and hope for the best. Hopefully what he'll do is attack to face with both, or he will trade off the 0-2 Totem. We shall soon see. So he's going to face, by the looks of it, with the Piloted Shredder, and he's also gone face with the Imp as well. So that's a fairly decent play. So now we've got the option of going Power Mace into Crackle, or we could just go Fire Elemental. I think I'm going to go Power Mace into Crackle and get rid of the 4-4 with the Crackle, just because I don't really want a 4-4 on the board. Even though it's got 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy, I don't really want it to attack anything at all. So let's get rid of this. This also kind of forces him to also trade out my Piloted Shredder, but I'm going to get rid of his one first just to see what it drops us. Drops him. So it drops him a 2-3. I don't really want to attack into that or his huge toad because obviously that trades everything anyway. But then if I trade into the Flame Juggler, he has to use his Imp to trade into my Piloted Shredder. So I'm going to do that just in the hope that it gives us a good drop at the end. I know the Power Mace is a bit of a wasted turn now, because obviously it's not going to give a random mech +2/+2, and I guess in a way it would have been better for us to attack the face, but nevertheless we have got a 2/2 on the board, so if he wants to, he can trade his 3/2 into that. But then obviously he doesn't have that particular card to have on board. So the 3/2 comes down from him as well. Plus he's got the Acidic Swampooze, which is actually a really good play for him. So do we use the Frostbolt? Or, well, actually no, because if we use the Frostbolt, we can only go Mini Mage Totem, and we're at 15. That might actually be the better play though. Frostbolt, deal 2 damage to a character, so we can get rid of the 3/2. Well, one of the 3/2s, probably the one where he discards a card. Trade the other 2/2 into something else and drop Mini Mage on board. 4, 5, 6, 7. We can't do the totem if we do that, but I think it's the better option for us nevertheless. So I'm actually going to trade into his Toad and hope it hits. It doesn't hit what I wanted to hit. I was going to say I hope it hits the 0/2 totem that we have on board. Unfortunately it doesn't, but nevertheless we do get our 4/1 on board that also has spell damage, so if we get anything from our deck such as Crackle or Forked Lightning in our next draw, we can actually clear the board quite well. I'm hoping for something along the lines of Direwolf. Another Pilot Shredder would be quite nice, something like that, that I've still got in my deck to obviously be able to drop. So he's kind of thinking about what he wants to do for this turn, because obviously with the Warlock they're not really going to run out of too many options with card draw because of their hero ability. So he's dropping a Twilight Dragon down, but it doesn't get the buff, which is interesting. So he's dropped that down, doesn't have the buff, and this I don't even know what it says. The next time you use your hero power it costs 2 less, so basically he got his hero power for nothing. So double fire elementals is actually quite a good drop for me. So let's drop fire elemental down and pop him into the 3/2 on board. Let's also totem up as well, which gives us a taunt, so that means we can attack to the face and end our turn there. So we have got the other fire elemental as well that we can drop for next turn. Obviously that also allows us to drop another totem on board as well. Our 0/2 totem has actually stayed on board for quite a long time, the one with spell damage. This one over here, the Wrath of Air totem, that stayed on the board pretty much since we first played it, but obviously it's no threat to our opponent, so that's probably why they haven't cleared it off board. But if I had any advice to give my opponent right now, I'd clear it off of board, just because of the Forked Lightning and the Crackle that we do still have in our deck. That could come down and obviously hurt him a bit more than he wants it to. So he's going to be clearing off my Fire Elemental, it looks like. Okay, so he's dealing 3 damage to all characters, and actually deal 1 damage to all minions. Okay, so right now let's see what our hero totem gives us. Hero power even. So it's another one of those. We could drop the fire elemental for the 2/3, or do we do it into the 3/2? I think we do it into the 3/2, just because it's a bit more of a threat to us, and we'll end our turn there. So obviously he's cleared off 1 fire elemental, but we do have this second one that we have dropped. Next turn we'll have full 10 mana, so I do want to kind of put out Captured Jawmonger into Spider Tank. And this game's actually a little bit closer than I thought it would be, solely because we're at 8 health, they're at 14. and at one point I think they were at quite a decent amount of health compared to what we had. So he's attacking in with the 4-3 to put us on 4, and I don't think there's anything we can actually do to stop him unless our totem drops us something to stall him out, which it doesn't. So I'm just going to say well played, and I'm not going to concede. I don't like conceding. I'm just going to hit into his taunt, play the Pilot Shredder and also the Spider Tank, just to show him that I did have a threat to play for next turn, which would have been lethal just from the totem drop we got, but then obviously had Earthen Ring Farseer anyway. But nevertheless, we unfortunately do lose our first draft game here. I don't know if there's anything I could have played a little bit differently. Maybe in the early game I should have went a bit more towards the face than I did trade in. So I think next time around in our next game I will definitely try and attack the face a little bit more. So that unfortunately is a loss in the first round of the draft. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to find another game. So it'll be 2 games in each episode until obviously we end up losing 3 games or we end up getting 12 wins, whichever one happens. But nevertheless, guys, I'm going to roll up and I'll find another game and I'll see you there. Okay, so we have found our second game of the episode, and we are against a Druid in this particular game. Now, looking at my hand, I've got the same card that I had in my opening hand last time, as well as Shattered Sun Cleric. So I'm just going to get rid of the Kraken and hope. Okay, we could have done with that last game, but nevertheless, we get Fort Lightning as another drop and a Power Mace. So we've got a decent curve with this particular opening hand. We can go 2, 3, and then 4 if we need to. But obviously they can drop a Zombie Chow first turn, so that's fairly good for them. So let's put out our Whirling Zapmatic, which he won't want to trade into, just because obviously that kills off his Zombie Chow, but at the same time I guess it doesn't really matter right now because it's not going to heal me at all. So I guess he doesn't mind trading into that, but we'll see what he chooses to do with that particular Zombie Chow. Because obviously with the Whirling Zapmatic we have Wind Fury, which means that we can attack into him twice, so he has cleared that off the board, which is something I actually thought he would do. So having that Feral Spirit's actually going to be what I play this turn, because Shattered Sun Cleric, no point in playing that. Power Mace, don't really have anything in conjunction with, and Youthful Brewmaster, don't really want to play that right now. So I'm going to drop down the Feral Spirit, which gives us 2/3 taunts. So if he wants to, he can attack with his 3/2, but it does get traded once again. So we'll see what he decides to do, but obviously having those 2 taunts kind of stalls out our opponent a little bit. So we do still have them obviously on the board. We could trade into his 3/2, but I can't. What does it say? Summon a random 1-cost minion. So let's just hit our hero power just to see what it gives us. So it gives us the air totem again. So do we trade into his 3/2, or do we go... Actually, let's just go face. We did too much trading, as I said at the end of the last game. So I'm just going to hit to face and get that face damage in, because if he does, well, he will probably give you a +4 attack or +4 health. He's probably going to give it health, which is, I wouldn't say it's odd. I respect the decision. Plus it gives it taunt, which obviously means that I have to attack through that, which means he does get a 1-cost minion after I attack through it. I'm slightly tempted to go Power Mace into Forked Lightning for the next turn, just because we can then use the Power Mace and the Forked Lightning to clear off the 3/4, but we will see what we draw into in our next draw. Because the Frostwolf Warlord, at the moment, not really much point in having that on the board, because it's not really going to have much of a buff. Okay, so Pilot Shredder is probably a good drop for us, considering that it says 2 random enemy minions and not just the 1. So let's put on Power Mace. We'll leave Pilot Shredder for now, but we will totem up, and that gives us the Taunt Totem, so that means he has to obviously attack through that first. Which means next turn we can go Piloted Shredder, and maybe we go Youthful Brewmaster, but there's no point in going Youthful Brewmaster because of the stuff that we have on the board, which is 2 totems, which would cost us 1. So the Youthful Brewmaster is probably not the way to go. Might go Frostwolf Warlord instead of the Piloted Shredder, but we shall soon see. In fact, I'm not too sure now. Not too sure at all, because he's got an 8/8 on the board as well as the 3/4. So I think we go with Forked Lightning and trade off the 3/4. So that gives him a 3/1 and an 8/5. So let's get rid of this and also drop a mech in the form of Piloted Shredder on the board, which means that we can hopefully trade out the 8/5 that he has on the field and go from there, because obviously we could potentially trade it off quite easily with Piloted Shredder and obviously the weapon, but I will want to try and play the Piloted Shredder first. In fact, we won't be doing that because he's going to be trading off the Piloted Shredder anyway. And then he's probably going to go to face with the 8 damage here. Oh, that is a great drop for us right there. That drop of the Annoyotron actually saves us quite a bit. I don't really want to have a Annoyotron on the board when I use this, because it will give a random mech, and that'll mean we'll have 2 mechs on the board. We could potentially go Youthful Brewmaster on the Annoyotron, have it back in hand and play it again. Return it, yeah. So that'll be 2, 3, 4, and we've got 5. So that'll be a decent turn, because then it will have Taunt once again. In fact, I think that's the play that we're going to go with. So we'll put this back into our hand, and then we will play it once again back onto the board, just because it gains its Divine Shield again, which means that the guy has to pop the Divine Shield and then attack through the minion, the Annoyotron. So what he's probably going to do is Hero Power, get rid of the Divine Shield, and then attack it with the 2/1 and attack to face with the 8/5. That is what I would personally do, but obviously that might not be. Okay, so it is what he's done, and then the 8/5 attack to face possibly, or is he going to play something else first? So he plays a Spider Tank first, and now he's attacking to the face with the 8/5. Okay, so that's fair enough. So we get... Oh, the Earth Elemental might be something that we can consider here, because we can give +1/+1, but then we take 8 damage to face. I'm trying to think what I want to do here. If we have Taunt 3, we still play the Piloted Shredder next turn. So let's go
We must cleanse the sun
with this play, I think. Trade off his Taunt. Obviously, we didn't have anything on board for the weapon that we had, obviously to buff, but nevertheless, we did trade off his Taunt, which is probably, hopefully, the only one that he has in his deck. Otherwise, we're in a little bit of a troubled situation. However, our 7/8 is probably a big body for him to get through as well. So I'm quite happy that we managed to draw into that when we did. So that might have stalled us out and might have saved us a little bit in this game, especially with the fact that we can drop Frostwolf Warlord next turn as well. The only thing is, I do kind of want to drop a totem down before that. So deal 5 damage, draw a card. So that puts it in range with a 3/4, but it does trade his 3/4 off the board, which is what he's going to do. Sorry about this, guys. I've got a really bad throat at the moment. So we could go this, Pilot Shredder, and attack to face. So it puts him on 26. We're on 11. So obviously we're in a tight situation, but we do have more board presence, and we're not too far behind in card draw either. Plus we have the Frostwolf to drop next turn. We have everything that was locked through the overload from the Jesus Christ, I can't remember it. The Earth Elemental. We did obviously have 3 mana locked last turn, Otherwise I probably would have played something like Huge Toad as well as what I went with, pardon me. But nevertheless, we have got a decent board presence, as I said, and I'm hoping that we can continue with this as well. And I'm sorry if you just got a little bit of interference there. I just got a text message, so I do apologise if you heard any interference through the microphone. But we managed to get an Armour Smith. Doesn't really help us at all, but it's a 1/4 body nevertheless. So we could trade off his 2/3 and then 2/1 quite easily. 5, 6, 7. We could go Huge Toad into Frostwolf, which will give it a very good buff. In fact, that is exactly what I'm going to do. So that's it now at 9/9. Do we trade his... I think we trade his 2/3 and his 3/2, his 2/1 even, with Shattered Sun and... Ooh, and also... I just said that Armour Smith wasn't going to be good for us, and it's been incredible for us there. Managed to buff us up by 2 health, plus we've attacked with it as well. I don't really know what kind of response this guy has in his hand, because last turn he used his other, which one was it? His other Starfire on my Piloted Shredder to draw another card and then play something else. So I'm guessing he was limited in the options he could play last turn, which is understandable. So he's gained an empty mana crystal through Wild Growth, and it also allowed him to draw a card. So he's drawn a card, you can only have 10 mana in your tray. So he's had a decent amount of card draw there, but it doesn't look like he knows what he wants to do. He's hovering. Okay, so you've got Stormwind, and it says your other minions have +1/+1. I could quite easily get that off the board. I'm trying to think what I want to do here. So I don't have 25 damage, obviously. Can I, at the end of each until they have 3 cards? Well, he can't draw, so if I go Jeeves Mini Mage, that might be quite good. But then I want to get rid of this 6/6 body, so I might play Northsea Kraken, deal 4 damage, trade the 3/2 into it. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. Deal 4 damage, trade the 3/2 into that, and then attack all of these to the face. So he is down to what, 13, and we are slowly but surely clawing our way back into this game. I think I got the draws that I needed to fairly swiftly and fairly easily right there, so I'm hoping that we can close out this game as efficiently as possible. But at the same time, is that his 3rd Starfire that he's managed to get during this draft? I think it is. So he's managed to get rid of that. He's probably going to put that... Yeah, he's putting that into the Kraken. He's also gaining an empty mana crystal, but unfortunately... Actually, it's not quite game. 9, 10, 11. It's 11 right now, so it's not quite game just yet, which is a little bit... Oh, I think you'll find that is game. So we are now 1-on-1 in this draft. I was very, very nervous about that game because I went down to about 13 to 11 health very, very quickly. And I was a little bit worried because I didn't know whether I was going to be able to pull out a victory there. However, we managed to come back and go 1-on-1 in today's episode, guys. So if you did enjoy this video, please leave it a like, rate, and subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to me. Links in the description down below will be to my Twitch, my Twitter, the sponsors Nifty Customs, the organisation's Twitter, and also my teammate Royalty's Twitter as well. But guys, that is the first episode of this arena run done. I went 1-on-1. I think in the first video, Jesus Christ, the first game, I didn't go to face enough. I kind of tried to trade too much, and then I kind of didn't get the draws that I wanted in the latter stages of the game. Whereas in this game, I went to face right at the start rather than trade him, and I managed to pull out the victory. So nevertheless, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.